So start in Pranayama Shavasana. Get yourself set up. So we're here in classic Pranayama Shavasana with a bolster. So the bolster creates an anterior tilt of the pelvis. It tilts the pelvis from back to front a bit. And so we have to counteract that by lengthening the buttocks toward the toward the feet. So there is a slight tilt of the pelvis, but muscularly scoop the muscles of the back toward the feet, so there's no bunching in the lumbar, and in the front body, a lift upwards from the lower abdomen all the way up to the collarbones. So when you bring your attention to your abdomen, the abdomen is on a gentle slope, but we try to make that a mild slope so that we can still have some control of the abdomen, because that helps us control the breath and the prana. So make sure that the angle of the pelvis is not such that it's causing backache, or not such that you don't have access to the lower abdominal muscles. And then taking your way higher up the trunk, see that the trunk is even across the bolster. It's very common, it's kind of typical for there to be a slight tilt. So if you really pay attention, there might be a natural tilt due to some curvature of the spine, which is very common. So then you might have to counteract a bit. You could even, in the future, put like a little washcloth or a small chum ball or something um, on the bolster if you find that your trunk is tilted to one side or another because of a structural variation. That is, if you have scoliosis or um, some other condition that's causing a tilt, then you can correct that by placing a little bit of padding under one side. So that's only for you to determine. It's not something that I can necessarily see or do from the video. So the other thing we're doing in pranayama, of course, is developing our sensitivity. So really paying attention to these small details. Make sure the shoulders are dropping down evenly. And this external palms up position of the arms, the purpose of that is to give you access to the arms in order to help support the lift of the chest. Right now, don't do anything, but just have the arms ready. It wouldn't, when we use the arms in pranayama, it's not a big action. It's a subtle action. So it might not even be visible on the screen, but have the arms available, but don't do anything with them now. Right now, just observe the abdomen rising and falling. Observe the kind of tide of the breath. The way that you would watch an ocean or one of the Great Lakes, the waves coming in and out. Observe the waves of breath coming in and out without any effort on your part. Now, staying with the abdominal breath, employ the abdomen just slightly on the exhales to lengthen out the exhales. So, normal abdominal inhale, and then exhaling, slight compression of the abdomen, pulling the abdomen up and back to lengthen out the exhales. Still, we're in the abdominal breath. So now start to count the breath, working up to the exhale twice as long as the inhale. Just if the inhale is normal, soft, abdominal, nothing special with the inhale. But start to lengthen out the exhales by engaging the abdomen on the exhales only. So today, almost just as if the inhale is only to provide some material for the exhale. So the inhales, don't try to take in extra air. Don't try to make it a strong inhale. Just a soft, relaxed, moderate inhale followed by a slower exhale. So right now the rhythm should be very asymmetrical. Normally the breath is more or less symmetrical, but right now with the effort and attention on the exhales, it's asymmetrical, and the exhales twice as long. Now start to make the transition into the Ujjayi actions and Bahya Ujjayi. So what that means is at the end of the exhale, keep the abdomen pulled in, and this time lifting the breath into the rib cage on the inhale. Not too slow, just a normal inhale, and then slow, soft exhale. So when we lift the breath into the rib cage, then we do have a little more volume to work with, and so you'll be able to slow the breath down even more. The exhales, I mean. Try not to take inhales that are as deep as the exhales. the amount of air on the inhale stays the same. And then when you transition, when you cross over into the exhale, that abdominal action needs to continue. So notice the difference between the abdominal breath and the Ujjayi. And we're applying a slight enhanced constriction on the exhales in order to slow it down. So once you establish a rhythm, then you can stop counting. You don't have to keep counting. The counting was just to be more concrete as you established a rhythm and to make sure that you were doing what you set out to do, which is to lengthen out the exhale. Bahya Ujjayi. Do 2 more cycles of Bahya Ujjayi and then return to normal abdominal breathing. Resting breath after your 2 cycles. So it's always interesting to observe the resting breath after you've done some cycles of um, intentional mitigated breathing. In this case, Bahya Ujjayi, Ujjayi stage 2. Okay, so then we'll spend a few minutes now with Bahya Viloma. Okay, so then it'll be the exhales. You've already been practicing elongating it. Now you're gonna add a couple of pauses. So it's a 3-stage exhale, right? So I'll talk you through the first few cycles, then you'll do some cycles on your own. On your next exhale, exhale a little bit deeper, a little more completely. And then inhaling, draw the abdomen up and back, lift the breath up, feel the ribcage expanding. And then from here, exhale, feel the ribcage shrink a little bit, pause. And then exhale some more, pause. Exhale completely. Take a resting breath. Now, before you go on to the next cycle, ask yourself, okay, what did I use? How did I practice this pause? How did I get install this pause? And how did I enact the pause? And so it's the diaphragm just coming to a standstill. Everything comes to a standstill, but you might need to bolster that standstill to make it a steady stoppage, a steady pause by giving a little extra rotation to the upper arm bone to feel the shoulder blades pressing in. Definitely, there's some abdominal action here. Everything else, face, jaw, throat, stays soft. The legs relax, growing soft. Hands soft. Sometimes the hands get tense when we do this breath work, so make sure the hands stay soft. Um, and let's do a few more cycles. Exhale completely. Inhaling, abdomen up and back to lift the breath into the rib cage. And then begin the 3-stage exhale. Exhale, pause, bring everything to a standstill. Exhale again, pause, and then exhale completely. So the pauses, the stages and the pauses are creating that same Ujjayi rhythm of the short inhales and the long exhales, but this time it's by virtue of the pause. Okay, so now do some cycles on your own. You can take resting breaths in between or not. It's up to you. Okay, and start when you're ready. So that all of these pranayamas, they really strengthen and tone the diaphragm. So the diaphragm, of course, is so important, and it's both voluntary and involuntary. So the diaphragm moves on its own involuntarily. But what we do in pranayama is we train the diaphragm. We train the diaphragm to breathe the way in the way that's most beneficial for us. So the diaphragm, even though it'll work on an involuntary level, it might not be as strong and supple as it could be. So that is to say, we may not be fully oxygenating ourselves uh, the way we could if our diaphragm was really toned and supple. So these pranayamas help to bring that kind of um, elasticity and strength to the diaphragm and give us a stronger uh, a stronger tool to oxygenate ourselves. And it's not just oxygen that we need. We also need carbon dioxide. And so a fully functioning diaphragm will ensure that we have optimal amounts of oxygen and carbon dioxide. You can very well go through life um, with not quite enough oxygen, not quite enough carbon dioxide, and function, but you won't necessarily function at your best. So hopefully pranayama is a very life enhancing practice that makes all our vital energy available to us. So this is Bahya Viloma. This is Viloma stage 2. And finish this cycle. And return to normal breathing after this cycle. And then from here, fold your hands onto your palms, bend your legs, roll off to the side. And then sit up. Okay, so we'll do a few seated. Okay, so I wonder if there's enough light. Okay. So have your bolster available, 2 blankets. Sit cross-legged. Have the blanket support under your knees. See that you have a fairly tight cross, okay? That fairly tight cross, maybe a little bit tighter than you would if you were just sitting casually, helps to bring lift to the spine. It helps to keep the pelvis level. A loose cross, the pelvis often tilts forward, anterior tilt, which makes it harder to control the breath. But then, we still want some support so that we don't end up slouching, so that we don't end up rounding the back at all. And then the blanket. So we'll do a series of Viloma. Okay, so we'll continue with the Bahya Vilomas. And the advantage when you're sitting up is that you can feel more of the back body moving. You can feel the back ribs spreading, and you also have a little bit more access to the muscles of the back. Um, before we launch into the Bahya Viloma, I want to offer an image of the lowest part of the lungs. So the lowest part of the lungs are where we can really get the maximum aeration. But for most of us, throughout most of the day, we just breathe from the top part of the lungs. So we're thinking of breathing not so much deeply, but low. So a low breath. So the low part of the lungs as we move into Viloma. So when you inhale, really think of filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and getting the lower lungs filled. And then as you exhale, hold an image of the bottom part of the lungs staying, the alveoli of the bottom part of the lungs staying full until the very end of the exhale. Okay? So we'll do visually, it's going to be exhale, pause, exhale, pause, exhale, pause. All right? So keeping the bottom part of the lungs aerated as long as possible. Palms up, relax the arms, and then bring your head down. Okay. Nod your head yes to make sure that you're not holding your head up, but also don't let your head sink. If you feel the cervical spine coming forward, so if you feel the cervical spine rolling toward the crown of the head, then your head is too far down. So instead, lift the collarbones higher, lift the sternum higher to meet the chin. Exhale completely. Slow, soft inhale. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. And then Viloma exhales, emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Exhale, pause, exhale, pause, exhale, pause. Your own rhythm. And then resting breath if you need, otherwise go on to the next cycle. Holding that image of filling the lungs on the inhale from the bottom to the top, and then exhaling from the top to the bottom in 3 stages. Soften the thumbs, descend the elbows, Not to hold the elbows stiff, not to hold the arms stiffly, but extend, let gravity pull the elbows downward. Palms soft. And remember, Ujjayi, I mean, all the pranayamas, very quiet, only you can hear it. So let that pause be a meaningful pause. Nothing is happening. Even the mind is empty during that pause. Don't overstay the pause, but you'll discover how long that pause should be. And that last exhale is quite important because you're expelling the air completely, emptying the lungs completely. So have a little, kind of like a little minor squeeze at the end of the last exhale to make sure that you've squeezed all the air out. Sometimes when the diaphragm is weak, then the lungs don't expel completely. So we are practicing that complete exhalation to strengthen the diaphragm. All right, finish this cycle. And then at the end of the cycle, return to normal breathing, keeping your eyes closed, bring your chin up. And rest your palms on your blanket. Just sit quietly for a moment. Okay, Shavasana. Settle yourself into Shavasana. And even here in Shavasana, it's just the resting breath. But give a little special attention to to the exhales, even in the resting breath. As you observe the abdomen rising and falling effortlessly, just uh, take an extra second at the end of the exhale to to see that all the air is expelled. So we're not going back to Ujjayi at this point, but just giving a little bit of extra attention to the exhale on the resting breath. And then for the next few cycles, you can even insert a little Brahmari. So through your closed lips, as you exhale, hum. And then let the hum peter out on its own and repeat. So the Brahmari is another way of extending the exhales. Just do 3 of them. And after your third Brahmari, then return to the resting breath. Okay, so you all can stay as long as you want in Shavasana. I will officially end, and you come up whenever you're ready.